maybe 1 or 2 points on the most impactful things to focus on when breaking into tech sales with no experience. Then we'll move to SDR to AE.
Yeah, I would say the first thing is a lot of people want to jump the gun and they think that what is a salesperson, and they think it's like an energetic person who's like, and it really breaks down quickly. Like they have no idea. So I think a lot of people don't spend enough time just fundamentally understanding what an SDR is, how it fits into an organization, looking at, good types of messaging and just getting your bearings.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people I've seen, and something we were talking about before we started recording, are just very unfocused. And it feels like progress because you're getting input from all these different things. But what it translates to when you're applying is you apply to one company and you spend all this time and energy, and then you get rejected. And because you've taken so many inputs, you're like, wait, maybe I did this wrong. And then you completely rip up something that, had you just kept building upon it, would have gotten even better and even sharper. And you're just starting over every single time. So if there's one thing, it's focus. Obviously there's so much to unpack there, but I think that's the biggest thing is people get so like, they make it this huge beast, and they just don't break it down into its smallest parts of what they need to do to actually be successful and break in. So.
Yeah, I love that idea of focusing on understanding the purpose of the SDR role in business. And you can show a hiring manager, I know exactly what I'm getting into. I know what the business expects of me to help set meetings, generate pipeline that ultimately leads to more revenue. And I'm willing to pick up the phone. And a part of focus too, I imagine, is, you want to focus on being a good interviewer and selling yourself in that process. And that's a whole can of worms though. So the key takeaway I have is, be focused in your journey and don't take inputs from like everyone.
Well, define the problem you're trying to solve. I think a lot of people just jump to the conclusion and they think, oh, I'm going to apply for a job, so let me do this and let me, I've never written an email, but just be confident, fake it till you make it. And if you actually just kind of slowed down, understood it a little bit more, and just put in an extra weekend of research, you'd be in so much of a better place. And I think people just kind of shoot from the hip. They get too anxious. They don't just focus. So, cold calling advice, emailing advice, LinkedIn messaging advice, optimizing your subject line advice. There's tons of it out there. And I'm not even saying that it's bad, right? But it goes back to that original point of focus. I see so many people that are like, let me try this or let me try this. And if you had actually just picked one thing and tried it long enough, you would actually be able to iterate successfully. But if you're trying something on Monday and then by Wednesday, you've completely rewritten what you're doing, or you've changed your cold call script. Anyway, all that to say, it's like, really where we emphasize, and what I think is often lost today in a lot of the tech sales advice, is really strategically planning your territory. And for instance, what I mean is a lot of people don't put thought into what types of leads are the highest converting, right? It's like, how many times can you optimize your cold call script or email, right? And at the end of the day, you may catch the CTO of a company and he might be at the doctor's office or he might be in the office, and you literally can't control that situation. So how much more is optimizing your cold call and email really going to help you? And we definitely cover that. Don't get me wrong. But I think what's often lost is strategically planning your territory, looking at, for instance, not just your inbound leads versus outbound leads, because obviously inbound leads will convert higher than outbound, but then breaking it down within that. And a very simple analogy is like someone who comes in and requests pricing is obviously very interested in what you're doing, right? And so you would drop anything to like go after that lead. But I don't see SDRs spending time beyond that and really breaking it down in terms of lead types. For example, your company maybe has 10 different white papers, right? But maybe there's 2 of them. And in my first job, there was a scaling white paper that we had that really talked a lot about ultimately what would be our paid features. And so, for instance, I found over time, by focusing on our scaling white paper and one other white paper compared to the other 20 that we had in our company, those leads were almost always way more receptive to talking, because if they're looking into how to scale their database, as an example, they clearly are facing a challenge and cannot scale their database, right? And I think, so it's really breaking your territory down in a lot of detail, and then where you can, putting in the automation, the sequences, the structures to make sure that you've automated a lot of the low priority and low potential leads, and you're giving yourself as much time as possible to really focus on the highest value leads. And so again, just in summary, it's like, all things equal, if you are a great cold caller and you are a great emailer and you are as well, and we're competing against each other, ultimately, at the end of the day, if we can cold call and email the same, the person who's going to win is the person who understands how to prioritize their leads in their territory better.